everybody. I'm Kristen McCormick. I am a learning experience designer at Ardent, and happy to have everybody join today and talk a little bit about what kindergarten can teach us about learner experience. So how long has it been since you've gotten a peek inside a kindergarten classroom? You know, maybe it's been recently with one of your own children, maybe it's been decades since you saw your own kindergarten classroom, but I want you to think back to the last kindergarten classroom you're in. So I have a daughter still in elementary school, so I get a peek inside those kindergarten classes every once in a while. And I can tell you that aside from technology, not much has changed from the classroom you're probably picturing in your mind. Undoubtedly, those memories are packed with lots of bright colors, creativity, books, different centers, and lots of hands-on fun. So there's just something about that childlike wonder that can't be matched. So today I want us to take a peek back into those carefree days from kindergarten and think about what is at the core of those learning experiences and what we can learn from them that can help us create more impactful and more enjoyable learning experiences for all ages. All right, so for some of us, this may be much tougher and longer time to dig back in those memory banks and think about our kindergarten classroom. But I'm curious, what is your favorite or most vivid memory from your kindergarten experience or your kindergarten classroom? And while I give you a few seconds to get your thoughts in the chat, I'll share a memorable part of my kindergarten memories. So yep, that's me doing the bunny boogie and a little kindergarten performance. Funny personal story from this picture. My little sister was born right before my kindergarten year. So we all know what happens when there's a new baby. That baby gets all the attention. So naturally, as any shunned older child would have been, I relished the spotlight for things like the bunny boogie. However, my little sister had different ideas and escaped my parents in the front row and quickly crawled her way to the middle of the performance. So you can imagine how thrilled I was about all the awes and big laughter from the audience. So I must have misplaced that picture that has her in it. So all right, so having common meals with everyone. Yep, that's awesome. Typing on a play computer. Listening to stories during story time. Caroline says, I remember that we had a sandbox in our classroom and they took it away because some kids were not following the rules and making a mess. I was so upset that the other kids ruined my sandbox time. Yep, somebody's always got to ruin it for everybody else. The sharing circle, yep. No desk, just play areas. Yep, there's those kind of centers. So, I mean, the biggest thing I think I remember about my kindergarten experience is just really all the fun and creativity that was infused into each day and each experience. Like we said, lots of coloring, crafting, and for me, singing about what we were learning, just like in this picture. So we often really try to make learning way more complicated than it is, and taking a cue from the simplicity and purity of the way we instruct our kids when they first start school is something we should consider as we design learning experiences for learners of all ages. So how can we use some of those things that made learning such a magical experience and bring that same joy to adult learners? So these are the 4 things that we're going to touch on a little bit today: hands-on experiential learning, social collaborative learning, and learner-centric approach, and the journey. So first up, let's talk a little bit about hands-on experiential learning. So one of my favorite things about walking into a kindergarten classroom is really that the intentionality that's behind the setup. Teachers use learning centers or stations to create interactive, hands-on learning environments. And those centers really allow kids to explore different topics independently or in small groups, really making the learning more engaging and effective. So there might be a drama corner with dress up, a construction center with building blocks, the reading corner filled with books, or the science center with hands-on experiments. So why not apply the same concept to our adult learners? Well, the research really tells us that we should be. So the 70-20-10 model is really a powerful framework that reshapes how we approach learning and development. And the idea is simple here, but really powerful and transformative. So 70% of learning comes from on-the-job or job-related experiences. 20% comes from that informal learning of interactions with others, and only 10% comes from those formal training events. Now think about that for a minute. 70% from doing. This emphasizes the importance of creating opportunities where learners don't just absorb the information, but they are actually able to apply it. So Imagine replacing traditional lecture style sessions with stations where participants can dive deep into specific topics. So, think about if you might have like a virtual session on leadership. Maybe you design virtual centers or breakout rooms to focus on practice with different applicable leadership scenarios. One station can focus on conflict resolution through role playing, while maybe there's another one where you might tackle decision making with a realistic case study. So curious from you guys, how might you execute more training that falls into that 70% range? What is there a topic in your current training program that you think could be transformed into a hands-on learning station? These ideas can be group-centered, individual, in-person, virtual. Share some of your ideas in the chat. I'd love to hear what you think you could take some in your current learning program and sort of transform that into a more hands-on approach. I'll give you a few seconds to get some of those answers in the chat. Great example would be potentially if you're training sales associates or someone in sales, maybe practice by recording a video of their sales pitch, that kind of thing. Lab time, users work through practice scenarios. Exactly. They're taking exactly what they're going to be doing and working through it in a safe environment where they can kind of get that help, assistance, the hands-on practice that they need. So exploring new products at various stations. Ooh, I like that one. So, if it's, again, if that's a salesperson that's getting familiar with different products of the organization, having a different stop for each of those. Love it. This is also where I think capstone projects really are extremely valuable, that they culminate in that presentation or showcase where learners really get to present their findings and demonstrate those skills to their stakeholders. Customer service modeling, that's another great one. All right, so those are some great thoughts and answers. So I want to move on to our social and collaborative learning. So we talked, about all those awesome centers or stations, right, in the kindergarten classroom. But really, one of the best parts of all those different centers was doing all that cool stuff with your friends and classmates, right? Those moments that you work together in groups, sharing toys, creating structures, playing games, while all just seemed like fun, it was really a powerful way to develop social skills and really reinforce the learning. So here's the thing, this approach really shouldn't stop at childhood, right? Fostering the social and collaborative learning in our work environments can really not only strengthen those social bonds again, but empower each other to really embrace and enjoy learning. And going back to that 70-20-10 model, we saw that informal learning, or absorbing that knowledge from our interactions with others, accounted for 20% of learning. That's double what the learning was in a single formal learning event. So really impactful. So how can we provide more social and collaborative learning opportunities for adults in the workplace? The answer is a little easier to solve for when you're able to train in person. It's easier to get people together, right? So, however, we are a heavily virtual world in the year 2024. So, fortunately, we have technology to help us with this. Learning experience platforms, or LXPs, like Intrepid is an example, and that's the example you see here on our screen, on the computer screen there. These kind of platforms allow you to take those formal learning events we discussed and really maximize their impact by adding all that social and collaboration with your peers and discussions with others as you learn. So in these kinds of platforms, learners can connect with each other and share insights, work together on challenges. It really makes the learning more interactive. And it doesn't just build the knowledge, it really builds a community of learners who are able to support and motivate each other. So collaborative learning environments have been shown to significantly enhance knowledge retention, and studies indicate that learners are more likely to remember information when they engage in discussions and those collaborative activities. So when individuals learn collaboratively, they also tend to be more engaged and motivated. The social aspect encourages active participation, really leading to a more enthusiastic approach to the subject matter. I mean, have you seen the energy in a kindergarten classroom, right? And the interaction and conversational nature of cohort-based learning really encourages that continuous learning culture. You know, sharing of knowledge and experiences fosters an environment where everyone has an appreciation for that lifelong learning. And LXPs like Intrepid and others, they also can really help you create those hands-on experiences that we already discussed. Intrepid specifically has projects and video assignments and missions that you can really leverage within the platform to help learners get the real world application that they need. All right, so we're gonna move on to our third point here, learner-centric. So think about a kindergarten teacher who has, likely 20 plus students, each with a different background, learning style, pace, and really to effectively teach young minds like that, the teacher has to provide varied opportunities for work and play, because the learning must accommodate the students' unique needs. So the teacher has to discover what those needs are. This tailored approach really ensures that every child can absorb and apply those key concepts in a way that really resonates. So for the L&D world, there's definitely been a learner-centric shift in more recent years, but there's always room for improvement, right? So how do we foster that learner-centric approach and ensure that all the training we design is meeting the needs of our learners? So at Ardent specifically, we have several tools that we have to use and often to explore learner needs a little bit more. So learner interviews, number one, plain and simple. These are really allow you to get firsthand insights directly from the learners themselves, right? They encourage the people that are on the receiving end of the learning to think deeply about what their challenges and needs are. And then that helps you come to meet those where they are, those challenges and needs. So design thinking workshops, right? They provide a collaborative space to explore and prototype solutions that cater to diverse needs. So if you're not familiar with design thinking, it's an iterative process that takes a human-centered approach to better understand those needs and learner gaps between what their current performance is and what the desired outcomes are. So there's the empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. Those are the five main parts of the process. And that empathize piece really lets you dig in and understand your learner a lot better. So, and then learner personas. Those are essentially what kind of comes out of that empathize step often, or just learner interviews if you aren't able to take something through that whole design thinking process. And learner personas are those fictional profiles that represent the target audience for whom our learning programs are designed. So they're created based on your real data and research, and they help the instructional designers understand the needs, preferences, and characteristics of their learners. These personas then really guide the design of that personalized learning. So curious on the learner-centric side of things. So I mentioned those three approaches that we consistently are using at Ardent, but I'm curious, what are some tools or techniques that you use to better understand your learners? Maybe a few minutes to focus groups. Yep. Focus groups, those kind of like round table discussions. Those are always great, because then people start building off of each other, and you really get a lot from those, I think. But focus groups, yeah. What about observation? Like actually observing what the training currently looks like. I know for me, working in more of a consultative role, it's often hard for me to be able to do that sometimes, especially if it's an in-person. So, but when I do get to do that, it's a very valuable tool to be able to kind of get a peek inside of things. Engagement survey, that's another great way. Any kind of formal survey. If you aren't able to get those face-to-face interviews, at least sending out some sort of survey to gather sort of a consensus on what the current state is, right? So, each of these tools just really ensures that we keep our focus on the learner, just as the kindergarten teacher has to understand the needs of the students in our class, right? But by understanding our learners deeply, we can really design experiences that are not just educational, but really transformative. So, I like that, Muhammad. Job shadowing might be more practical as opposed to observation, which sounds intimidating. That's awesome. I love the terminology switch there. All right, finally, our last little piece is going to be about the journey. So, especially as a parent, I think one of the most amazing things about kindergarten is watching how much children grow and progress throughout the year, right? The curriculum is designed specifically to take them on a learning journey step by step. It's not just about teaching them the ABCs or counting or, addition or whatever it is, but it's about understanding the entire learning trajectory, ensuring that each experience is impactful and contributes to those overall educational targets. So, early education as a whole, the curriculum is built and designed on the very premise that learning doesn't happen all at once. Instead, they carefully plan out activities and lessons that build on each other, making sure that each child is fully supported along the way. And this approach just helps ensure that what students learn really sticks with them. So, like we talked about with the 70-20-10 model, right? That 10% comes from formal training events, but how often have you been part of a training or education as a one-time event, a single workshop, a quick training session, with the expectation that lasting change should happen for you after that one event? You're supposed to know this after we're done, right? I know we all have. It's just not realistic though. So what if instead we designed learning experiences that supported our learners before, during, and after the main event, right? So when we design with the journey in mind, we're not just delivering content, we're equipping learners with the tools they need to succeed long-term. So a learning journey is designed to strategically develop specific skill sets through a series of interconnected experiences. And just like each learning event in kindergarten is very intentionally and strategically mapped out, right? So it's a continuous process that integrates formal training with informal learning opportunities to ensure that long-term growth. So another way that a learning journey blends formal and informal learning opportunities is by diverse methods, right? Maybe an e-learning here, maybe there's a virtual instructor-led course there. Maybe there's an individual reflection activity. It's the experience of all the different types of modalities that keeps the learner engaged. So learning journeys are, they're really highly personalized, coming out of those things we talked about with the learner-centric focus and understanding the learner personas and the needs and gaps. So they're really tailored to meet those needs of the individual learner. All that homework that you did is going to inform what that journey looks like. And also, it's really important to remember that, in early education, there's, in any education, honestly, there's constant assessment and analysis to make sure the path students are on meets their needs. So we have to do that for adult learners as well. Regular evaluations and feedback are integral to tracking progress and understanding what the lay of the land is, right? We need to understand if the journey we designed is making the impact we intended and what adjustments might need to be made if it isn't. So, all right. So, as we wrap up today's session, I just want to recap of what we talked about, right? Hands-on or experiential learning really gives learners the real world application they need. That social collaborative learning encourages engagement, which helps reinforce the learning. And the learner-centric approach ensures that we're meeting our learners' needs and filling those gaps. And then that focus on the entire journey helps ensure we are setting learners up for long-term success. So finally, I want to leave you with this quote. Taylor Caldwell was an American novelist of historic fiction. And these words really resonated with me and kind of spoke to the essence of everything we talked about today, right? Learning should be a joy and full of excitement. It is life's greatest adventure. It is an illustrated excursion into the minds of the noble and the learned. So, I mean, kindergarten was fun, right? I mean, I think we always remember it being so much fun to learn when we were in that stage of life, right? So why shouldn't we have that joy in all our learning? I really think it's especially important to think about specific approaches we've touched on today, not only to meet your learners where they are, but meet them in the place where they get really excited or inspired to learn. So that's it for me. I'd love to leave some space for any questions. If you have any thoughts or questions or any contributions, anything I've left out of what we could have learned from kindergarten, and invite you to throw that in the chat if you have any thoughts there. And I also want to leave with this. You'll be getting this in an email following the session. So not only a little reminder of what we've talked about today and those important highlight points, but a chance to get creative, a little coloring sheet to bring out your creative side as well. So, okay, I think we have. Okay, we have a question from Muhammad, wondering what the top 5 LXPs are cost effective and provide high level of ROI. That is not something I have at the tip of my fingers, but I'd love to look into that and we could get back to you on that, because I know there is there over the past couple of years has been an explosion of a different kind of LXPs, and so we worked a lot with Intrepid. That's why I use that as an example. But I know there are others that support that type of engagement and learning as well. So Serena said we use an engagement tool during hybrid sessions to get learners involved. Oh, okay. Well, I'd love to. What kind of engagement tool is that? I know those hybrid sessions can be one of the most difficult things to facilitate. Having people both virtual and in person, it really takes some intentionality in designing those kinds of training sessions. Like so many things, okay, John says, like so many things, how do we get stakeholders to consider that this approach is better than a traditional training approach? Isn't that always the question, John? I mean, for me, I think it's just speaking from experience and continuing to share the impact, the research, that kind of stuff. You know, you can do that till you're blue in the face, and sometimes you still may not convince somebody, but you know, just coming in there with the very intentional strategies and support behind those strategies, I think is impactful. Okay, Echo 360, okay, allows for live questions and answers. Okay, I actually have not heard that one, but I'm interested to look into that. And we always add a ridiculous answer. That's always fun. Yeah, always good to keep people laughing and engaged. So awesome. Well, if there's not any more questions, I have enjoyed our time together today, and I hope you guys take some time to color and get back to your creative childlike selves for a little while once you get our coloring sheet. So all right. Thanks, everybody.